my best friend. Slept with my girlfriend. Yeah, you heard that right. The two people I trusted the most betrayed me. But what they didn't know was that I had a secret that would change all of our lives. And when the truth finally came out, they regretted everything. My name is Daniel. I'm 26 years old. And until last year, I thought my life was perfect. I had a great job, a beautiful girlfriend, and a best friend who had been with me since childhood. His name was Ethan. Ethan and I grew up in the same neighborhood. We went to the same school, played the same games, and shared the same dreams. He wasn't just my friend. He was like a brother to me, someone I trusted with my entire life. And then there was Lisa, my girlfriend. I met her 2 years ago at a small coffee shop downtown. She had the kind of smile that could make anyone feel warm, kind, funny, beautiful. I fell in love with her almost immediately. And for a while, everything felt perfect. Ethan liked her too. He said she was perfect for me. We would often hang out together. Movies, dinner, weekend trips. Just the three of us. Back then, I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. I had the perfect girlfriend and the perfect best friend. But looking back now, there were signs, small things, little moments that didn't make sense. At the time, I ignored them because I trusted them, both of them. But one night, everything changed. And that was the night I discovered the truth. At first, everything still looked normal. Ethan was still my best friend. Lisa was still my girlfriend. And our lives continued at up like nothing had changed. We still met almost every weekend. Sometimes we watched movies. Sometimes we had dinner together. Sometimes we just talked for hours, just like old times. But slowly, I started noticing small things, very small things, things that most people would probably ignore. For example, Lisa started texting a lot more than usual. At first, I didn't think much about it. Everyone uses their phone, right? But one night, I noticed something strange. We were sitting together on the couch. She was texting someone, and suddenly, when I looked at her phone, she quickly locked the screen. Too quickly, almost like she was hiding something. I laughed it off. Maybe it was just a private conversation. Maybe I was overthinking. But that wasn't the only thing. A few weeks later, Ethan started acting differently too. He used to call me almost every day. But suddenly, he stopped. When I texted him, his replies became shorter, colder, and sometimes he didn't reply at all. I told myself he was just busy. Work, life, maybe stress. But then something happened that I couldn't ignore. One evening, I went to Lisa's apartment to surprise her. I had bought her favorite dessert, chocolate cake. I thought it would make her happy, but when I arrived, she wasn't home. Her car wasn't there, so I called her. She didn't answer. 10 minutes later, she finally called back. Her voice sounded strange, nervous. I asked her where she was. She said she was out with a friend, just a friend. I believed her. Of course I did. Because why wouldn't I? She was my girlfriend. And Ethan was my best friend. But what I didn't know was that the truth was already right in front of me. And very soon, I was going to see it with my own eyes. After that night, I tried to forget about it. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe everything was still normal. That's what I told myself. But deep inside, something felt wrong. Very wrong. Lisa started going out more often. Sometimes at night. Sometimes saying she was meeting friends. But whenever I asked which friends, she always gave very vague answers. Just some friends from work. Just a girls' night. Nothing specific. Nothing clear. At first, I believed her because I trusted her. But then, another strange thing happened. One evening, Ethan suddenly texted me. It had been almost a week since we last talked. The message was simple. Hey man, busy lately? That was it. Short, cold, very different from him. Ethan used to be the kind of guy who would call me just to talk about random things. Football, games, life. But now, he barely talked. Still, I replied, yeah, work has been crazy. What about you? He didn't answer. Not for hours. Not until the next morning. And when he finally replied, it was just one word. Same, that was it. Something about that message felt strange, very strange. But the moment that really made me uneasy happened a few days later. I was having dinner with Lisa. We were sitting at a small restaurant, talking, laughing, just like a normal couple. Then suddenly, her phone lit up on the table. For a brief second, I saw the name on the screen. Ethan, my best friend. Lisa quickly grabbed the phone, too quickly, and turned it upside down. She looked at me and forced a smile. "It's nothing," she said, "just a random message." But something in her voice felt off, very off. And in that moment, for the first time, a terrible thought entered my mind. What if the two people I trusted most were hiding something from me? But I still didn't want to believe it. Not yet, because if that thought turned out to be true, it would destroy everything. And I had no idea how close I was to discovering the truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. The name on Lisa's phone kept replaying in my head. Ethan, my best friend. Why would he text her? And why did she hide it? I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe he was asking about me. Maybe he needed something. Maybe. I was just overthinking. But the more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I felt. The next morning, I decided to call Ethan, just to talk. Just like we used to. He answered after a few rings. "Hey man," he said. His voice sounded normal. Too normal. We talked for a few minutes. About work. About random things. But the entire time, I was waiting for him to mention Lisa. But he never did. Not once. And that made everything even stranger. Because if he texted her, why wouldn't he tell me? After we hung up, I sat there in silence, thinking, trying to connect all the pieces, the late night texts, the strange behavior, the nervous smile. Something was definitely wrong, but I still didn't have proof. Just a terrible feeling in my chest. And then, a few days later, something happened that changed everything. I finished work early that afternoon, much earlier than usual, so I decided to visit Lisa. I thought it would be a nice surprise, but when I arrived at her apartment building, I noticed something that made my heart stop. A car, parked right in front of her building, a car I knew very well. It was Ethan's, my best friend's car, and in that moment, a cold feeling ran through my body because there was only one question in my mind. Why was my best friend at my girlfriend's apartment? And I was about to find out. For a few seconds, I just stood there, frozen, looking at Ethan's car, my best friend's car, parked right in front of Lisa's apartment building. My heart started beating faster. Maybe he was visiting someone else. Maybe he had another friend in the building. Maybe this was all just a coincidence. That's what I kept telling myself, because the other possibility was too painful to even imagine. Still, I had to know. So I walked toward the entrance. Each step felt heavier than the last. My mind was racing, trying to find any explanation, any reason that made sense. But deep inside, I already felt the truth, waiting for me upstairs. When I reached Lisa's door, I stopped. My hand hovered over the door. For a moment, I almost turned back, because once I knocked, everything could change. But I needed answers. So I knocked once. No response. I knocked again. This time, I heard something inside. Footsteps. Quick footsteps. Then, whispers. Two voices. My heart dropped, because one of those voices sounded very familiar. A man's voice. I stepped closer to the door, listening. And then, I heard it clearly. Ethan, my best friend, inside my girlfriend's apartment, laughing. At that moment, the world around me felt like it stopped. Every terrible thought I had been trying to ignore suddenly became real, but I still didn't know the full truth. Not yet, because a few seconds later, the door slowly started to open, and what I saw next completely shattered me. The door slowly opened, and there she was, Lisa, my girlfriend, standing right in front of me. Her eyes widened. The moment she saw me, "Daniel?" she said. Her voice trembled, like she had just seen a ghost. For a moment, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then, I looked past her shoulder into the apartment, and that's when I saw him. Ethan, my best friend, standing in the living room. He looked just as shocked. His face turned pale. No one said a word. The silence in that room felt unbearable. My heart was pounding so hard, I could hear it in my ears. I looked at Lisa, then at Ethan, and suddenly, all the strange moments from the past weeks started making sense. The late night texts, the secret phone calls, the nervous smile. It all pointed to this moment. Finally, I spoke. "What are you doing here?" My voice was calm, too calm. Lisa quickly stepped forward. "It's not what you think," she said. The oldest lie in the world. I slowly looked at Ethan, my best friend, the guy who had been like a brother to me. He couldn't even look me in the eyes, and in that moment, I knew. I didn't need any explanation. I didn't need any more proof, because the truth was standing right in front of me. The two people I trusted the most had betrayed me, but what neither of them knew was that this story was far from over, because I had a secret that would change everything. For a long moment, no one spoke. The room felt heavy, like the air itself had become difficult to breathe. Lisa looked nervous. Ethan looked guilty, and I just stood there, watching them, taking everything in. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Daniel, listen, this isn't what it looks like." I almost laughed, because that sentence is probably the most common lie in the world. But I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I didn't throw a punch. Instead, I simply nodded. "Relax," I said quietly. "I'm not here to fight." Both of them looked surprised, very surprised. They probably expected anger, maybe even violence, but I gave them nothing, just silence. Then I looked at Ethan. "You should go," I said. He hesitated. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to explain, but I didn't give him the chance. "Just go." A few seconds later, he grabbed his jacket and walked past me without saying another word. The door closed behind him. Now it was just me and Lisa. She started talking immediately, trying to explain, trying to justify everything. But honestly, I wasn't really listening anymore, because something inside me had already changed. The trust was gone, completely gone. Still, I didn't break up with her. Not that night, not yet. And the reason was simple. They both thought they had already won. They thought I was weak. They thought I was stupid. But the truth was, they had no idea what I was about to do next, because the secret I had been hiding was about to turn their entire world upside down. That night, after I left Lisa's apartment, I didn't go home. Instead, I drove around the city for hours. My mind was full of thoughts, memories, questions, and one painful truth. The two people I trusted the most had betrayed me, but strangely, I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way most people would expect. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even shaking. Instead, I felt something else, something cold, something calm, because deep down, I knew something they didn't know. A secret I had been hiding for years. You see, to Lisa and to Ethan, I was just Daniel, an ordinary guy, a normal office worker, someone with a simple life. At least, that's what they believed. That's what I allowed everyone to believe. But the truth was very different. A few years ago, my life changed in a way almost no one knew about. Not my coworkers, not my friends, not even Ethan, and definitely not Lisa, because the truth was, I wasn't just an ordinary employee. The company I worked for, the big tech company everyone admired, was actually built by my family. My father started it 20 years ago, and before he passed away, he left something to me. Everything. The company, the shares, the power. But instead of acting like the owner, I chose to live a normal life. No luxury cars, no expensive watches, no showing off. I wanted people to like me for who I was, not for my money, not for my status. And for years, that worked perfectly. Until now, until the night, my best friend and my girlfriend decided to betray me, because what they didn't realize was that their little secret was about to cost them everything. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in days, my mind felt clear, very clear. The betrayal still hurt, of course it did. But now, that pain had turned into something else. Focus. Because if Ethan and Lisa thought they could betray me without consequences, they were about to learn a very expensive lesson. Later that morning, I went to the office, the same office I had been working in for the past 3 years. To everyone there, I was just another employee. Quiet, hardworking, nothing special. and I kept it that way, on purpose. But that day, things were about to change. I walked into the building and headed straight to the top floor, a floor most employees never visited, the executive floor. When I arrived, the receptionist looked surprised. "Good morning, Daniel," she said. "You don't usually come up here." I smiled. "Yeah," I replied calmly. "I know." Then I continued walking down the hallway, straight to the large glass doors. At the end, the boardroom. Inside, several executives were already waiting. Men and women in expensive suits. The people who actually ran the company. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. The moment I walked in, they all stood up. Every single one of them. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," one of them said respectfully. Mr. Carter, a name almost no one in my personal life knew, because Daniel Carter wasn't just an employee. Daniel Carter was the owner, the real owner of the entire company. And soon, very soon, Ethan and Lisa were going to find out exactly who they had betrayed. The meeting lasted almost 2 hours. We discussed contracts, new investments, future projects, things that normally would take weeks to decide. But today, my mind kept returning to the same thought. Ethan. When the meeting finally ended, one of the executives looked at me. "Mr. Carter," he said, "is there anything else you would like us to review?" For a moment, I stayed silent. Then I asked a simple question. "Do we have an employee named Ethan Walker?" The room became quiet. One of the HR directors opened a tablet. She searched for a moment, then she nodded. "Yes," she said. "He works in the marketing department." I slowly leaned back in my chair. Marketing. Interesting, because marketing was one of the departments currently being evaluated for restructuring. In other words, people were going to lose their jobs. I looked around the room at the executives waiting for my decision. Then I spoke. "Bring me his file." 10 minutes later, they placed a folder on the table. Ethan Walker, my best friend, or at least the man I once believed was my best friend. I opened the file. Education, work history, performance reviews, everything about his career was right there in front of me. And suddenly, an idea appeared in my mind. Not revenge, not exactly. Something better, something smarter, because destroying someone's life in one moment is easy, but watching everything slowly fall apart is far more painful. I closed the file and stood up. "For now," I said calmly, "don't make any changes to the marketing department." The executives nodded. The meeting was over, but the game had just begun, and Ethan had no idea that his entire future was now sitting in my hands. A few days passed, and just like I expected, things slowly started to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just small cracks. The kind of cracks most people don't notice until it's too late. At work, Ethan started having problems. Small mistakes, missed deadlines, projects that didn't go well. Normally, those things wouldn't matter much. But right now, the company was under review. Every department was being evaluated. Every employee was being watched, including Ethan. Meanwhile, Lisa started acting differently too. She called me more often, texted me more often, almost like she was trying to fix something. Maybe she felt guilty. Maybe she was afraid. Or maybe she was starting to realize that something was wrong. Because the truth was, Ethan had already told her about his problems at work, about the pressure from management, about the rumors of layoffs. And that was when something interesting happened. One night, Lisa asked to meet me. We sat together in a quiet restaurant. She looked nervous, more nervous than I had ever seen her before. Finally, she spoke. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something." I looked at her calmly, waiting. Then she said the words I had been expecting. "Ethan might lose his job." I nodded slowly, pretending to be surprised. "That's unfortunate," I said. Lisa hesitated. Then she looked at me very carefully. "Daniel, you work at that company too, right? Maybe you know someone who could help him." For a moment, I stayed silent. Then I leaned back in my chair and smiled, a very small smile, because at that moment, Lisa had no idea. She was asking the one person in the world who had the power to decide Ethan's fate. And soon, both of them were going to learn the truth about who I really was. For a moment, I just looked at Lisa, sitting across from me, waiting for an answer. She had no idea what she was really asking. She thought I was just another employee, just another guy working in the same company as Ethan, someone with no power, no influence, no control. But the truth was very different. I slowly placed my glass on the table. Then I leaned forward. "Lisa," I said calmly, "there's something you should know." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" I took a slow breath. Then I said the words that changed everything. "I don't just work at that company. I own it." For a few seconds, Lisa didn't react. It was like her brain refused to process the words. Then slowly, her face turned pale. "What?" she whispered. "That's not funny, Daniel." But I wasn't smiling. I wasn't joking. And she could see it in my eyes. "Ethan works in my company," I continued, "and right now, his entire future there depends on me." The silence between us felt heavy, very heavy. Lisa looked terrified, like she suddenly realized how big her mistake was. "Daniel, She tried to speak, tried to explain, but it was already too late. Because a few days later, the news spread through the entire company. The marketing department was being restructured. Several employees were being let go. And Ethan Walker was one of them. When he found out, he tried to contact me. Dozens of calls, messages, apologies, but I never replied. Not once. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people live with the consequences of their own choices. A few weeks later, Lisa tried to come back too. She said she made a mistake. She said she still loved me. But by then, it didn't matter anymore, because the two people I trusted the most had already shown me who they really were. And once trust is broken, some things can never be repaired. So I walked away from both of them. And for the first time in a long time, I finally felt free. Because the truth is, betrayal doesn't destroy you. Sometimes it simply shows you who never deserved to be in your life. 1 year passed, a lot can change. In a year, the company continued to grow. New projects, new partnerships, new opportunities. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But my life had changed too, in ways I never expected. For a while, I stayed away from relationships. After what happened with Lisa, trust didn't come easily anymore. But strangely, I didn't feel angry. Not anymore. Because sometimes, losing people is actually a form of freedom. A few months later, I heard something about Ethan from an old coworker. Apparently, after losing his job, things didn't go well for him. He struggled to find another position. Companies talk, reputations travel fast, and eventually, people started asking questions about why he was fired. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to, because his story was no longer part of mine. And then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I was leaving the office when I saw someone standing across the street. Lisa. She looked different, quieter, more tired. For a moment, our eyes met. She looked like she wanted to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a goodbye, but I simply nodded once. Then I got into my car and drove away. Not because I hated her, not because I wanted revenge, but because some chapters in life are meant to stay closed. And as I drove through the city, I realized something important. The betrayal that once felt like the end of my world had actually become a new beginning. Because sometimes the people who break your heart are the same people who unknowingly set you free. Looking back now, sometimes I still think about that night. The night everything changed. The night I discovered the truth. At the time, it felt like my entire world had collapsed. Two people I trusted more than anyone else. Gone, just like that. But life has a strange way of teaching lessons. Sometimes the hardest moments become the most important ones. Because betrayal does something powerful. It shows you who people really are, not who they pretend to be, not who you hope they are, but who they truly are when no one is watching. And that lesson is more valuable than anything money can buy. Today, my life is peaceful. The company continues to grow. My work keeps me busy. And for the first time in a long time, I'm happy. Not because I won, not because they lost, but because I learned something very important. Trust is rare, Loyalty is rare, and the people who truly deserve your trust are the ones who stay loyal, even when no one is watching. So if there's one thing this story taught me, it's this. Sometimes the worst betrayal in your life is actually the beginning of something better, something stronger, something real. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest revenge of all, living a life that no longer needs them.